David Benioff and D.B. Weiss, the writers behind the hit show Game of Thrones, will be the ones to write and produce the first movie in the next Star Wars trilogy that will debut in 2022, and the question that's on everyone's mind is, do they deserve this opportunity and will they do a good job with Star Wars? Now, I'm sure for what has transpired in Season 8 of Game of Thrones, many will be quick to say no to this question. Star Wars itself, while still a money-printing franchise, has seen quite a lot of criticism for The Last Jedi, a movie that is infamous for its poor use of subverting expectations, which Game of Thrones Season 8 has been criticized for. So will D&D be able to bring a solid script to the upcoming trilogy? Now before we answer that, we have to consider a few things. For what it's worth, the pair has done an amazing job with adapting George R.R. Martin's books into the first 4 TV seasons of Game of Thrones. No one can deny that they made great use of the source material that was readily available, so if there's a solid reference for them to follow, they will be capable enough to produce a faithful adaptation. While Star Wars does have a lot of lore from the previous movies to work with, it is something that has no available story or book to fall back on, and for what's been presented to us with seasons 5 to 8 of Game of Thrones, it is quite obvious that the writing had faltered when there was a lack of source material to reference. This might prove a difficult task for D&D, as the upcoming Star Wars movie that they're going to write is going to be one that's almost completely original. Are Dan and Dave capable of crafting their own genius story from scratch? Take a look at Season 5 of Game of Thrones, a season that is often noted to be far weaker in terms of writing when compared to Season 4. Season 6 and 7 did pick up the slack and showed promise and led most to believe that perhaps D&D could perform as writers in their own right, until that one plan that involved capturing a wight from the army of the dead to convince Cersei to ally with them surfaced in episode 6 of Season 7. Season 8, however, is where most of the fans are divided. It is often criticized for being rushed, inconsistent, having poor pacing, and attempting to subvert our expectations for shock value, and I can't help but agree to a certain extent. I thought the final season in particular could benefit from more episodes and less time dedicated to less important characters like Arya, who is a fan favorite but not exactly important to the endgame. Season 8 planted seeds of doubt into many fans' minds, and many made the assumption that perhaps D&D were incompetent writers. There is no denying that the writing in Season 8 in particular was the weakest in the entirety of Game of Thrones. Another thing that we need to ask is, what kind of Star Wars series are D&D going to do? With their experience on a show like Game of Thrones, one would assume that this new Star Wars would take inspiration from it, and perhaps this new Star Wars movie will take place in the Old Republic, which fans are also hoping for. Kathleen Kennedy herself told Entertainment Weekly in April 2019 that she thinks that this idea is absolutely on the horizon, which perhaps is a hint that this will come to pass. She also mentions that the D&D Star Wars movie is a huge opportunity to step into a galaxy that's in a little bit of a different part of the timeline, which further alludes to this possibility since the Old Republic takes place thousands of years before the Rey, Luke, and Anakin trilogies. What makes this prospect sound even better is the fact that the Old Republic already has readily available source material for them to adapt, which doesn't come in the form of a book but in the form of a critically acclaimed video game, Star Wars: The Old Republic. As I've said before, D&D does do impressive work with adapting a book into a TV show, so perhaps they'll be able to replicate the same magic here with a video game. So do D&D deserve Star Wars, and will they make a good Star Wars movie? I'm honestly not sure. While I dislike what they've done with the ending of Game of Thrones, I can still appreciate and be grateful for the first 4 seasons of the series, and I wouldn't exactly jump to the conclusion that they're terrible writers. I'm not too hopeful for the new Star Wars trilogy, but I'd say that we should at least give them a chance, especially if it does take place in the Old Republic, which is something they can reference from in the video games. Aside from that, I guess we'll only know when the movie comes out in 2022. Thanks for watching. Special thanks to a friend of mine, Khalid, for giving me the idea for this video and for helping me script it. If you've enjoyed the video, do leave a like, comment, and subscribe as it really helps out the channel, and do leave your thoughts and comments in the comment section below. I'll see you next time on TikTok. Peace.